All right, good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. I know folks are still hopping on right now as we're about 2 minutes until the start of our webinar, but I'm pleased to have you and pleased to welcome you. My name is Kristine Brown. I'm the Director of Member Engagement for the Reno-Sparks Chamber. And again, it's my pleasure to welcome you, and it's my pleasure to moderate these calls and these conversations that we're enjoying right now. And as it turns out, today is actually the last call in our New Year, New EDU series, which is part of our overall program called Chamber EDU, which is our effort to make sure that members of the Reno-Sparks Chamber get connected to the resources, information, and anything they're curious about throughout this time that we're enduring the COVID-19 crisis. As well as just good evergreen guidance. And so it's with that, in that spirit, that I'm happy to announce that our next series as part of Chamber EDU is going to be focused on what I'm calling Business 101. So kind of getting back to the basics of what makes a successful business or nonprofit for that matter. So we're going to be talking about budgeting. We're going to be talking about management, organizational structure, leadership. We're going to be talking about marketing and branding. So be looking for those webinars to be scheduled in late February and all through the month of March. And I'm happy to say that we've got one of our partners on board to help us with that series. We've got the UNR School of Business, who is on tap to provide us with some instructors, with some of their faculty and staff, to provide their expertise to our members throughout the course of that series. So please join us again, stay close to us, bookmark our website, follow us on social media for all the latest on when those courses are scheduled. And so with that, I just want to say a quick thank you to some of our partners before we get started. BBSI, Clark and Associates, Prominence, the Row, and of course, the Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority. CEO Daren Griffin is with us today and will be sharing his views and his expertise and his perspective on air travel throughout 2021 as we come out of arguably what was one of the toughest years of air travel, 2020, and head into what is hopefully a brighter tomorrow with friendlier skies, as it were. So I want to invite Daren Griffin to go ahead and share his video and audio right now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that he can share his, because I know that he's going to start us off with a presentation today. So just a reminder, we'll go ahead and take your questions after the presentation is over. If you do have questions for Daren, please don't hesitate, don't be shy, put them in the chat box and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of the call. And I'll have some questions for Daren myself after his presentation too. So with that, I want to introduce Daren Griffin, our new CEO of the Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority. Good morning.
Good morning, Kristine. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. Good to see you again, and good morning to everybody with us this morning. I am going to share my screen. Let me know when you can see that.
Looks great. We can see it. Perfect.
Great. Let me run that presentation. Okay, how's that look?
Perfect.
Okay, well, first, I want to tag on to something you said right there, Kristine. 2020 was not arguably the worst year in commercial aviation. There's no argument. It was the most catastrophic impact to the airline industry, airport industry, since aviation was invented by the Wright brothers a long time ago. It was astonishingly bad, and I'll go through some numbers with this group. I'll do some introductory stuff first. Appreciate the time and opportunity this morning. I love talking about airports and learning a lot since I got here 6 months ago. So for just a quick refresher, for anybody who doesn't know who we are as the Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority, we own and operate, of course, the International Airport here in town and Stead Airport in the North Valleys area. We're governed by a 9-member board made up of members from the City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County, and a representative from the RSCVA. And I just want to praise my board. It has been one of the highlights of the job for me to step in and work with such a great group of 9 people committed to recovery of our business and our region. And I'm extremely optimistic because of our board and many other reasons. It's an important economic engine. The airport, here it is, all airports are. Commercial service airports drive a tremendous amount of growth, prosperity, and economic stimulus through any community they are in, and certainly that's the case here. In a normal non-pandemic year, so 2019, more than a $3 billion annual economic impact, and we certainly hope to get back to that number in the years ahead. Normally around 280 employees here in the Airport Authority. We're lower than that right now. I'll touch on that. And in total, more than 3,000 employees out here between the 2 airports. So important job centers. In 2019, we had more than just right about 4.5 million annual passengers, which was not a record high, but a really great year. And I'll go through some of those annual numbers. 10 passenger airlines that we had in 2019, we still have all 10. And that is something that is really important to us, is that through this pandemic, we not lose any airlines. That, you know, those are vital to us. It's a struggle for airlines right now. And I'll talk more about what we're doing to keep our costs as low as we can for our airline partners. 3 cargo carriers, of course, Customs and Border Protection facility here that presently accommodates our nonstop to Guadalajara, Mexico. And of course, we're a bit of an enterprise operation out here, our own police, our own fire, 24/7 operation, and self-sufficient in every aspect of the word. You know, what a perfect time for me to take on a new job as the CEO here. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. Right. And so everything I do is like, wow, you're really doing great. And you have to keep it all in perspective, because we are a long ways from being where we used to be. And here's just a few numbers for everybody. You know, in March of last year, we had at 1.6 thousand people a day getting on airplanes here at the airport. And by April 15th, we're down to 300. This was something most airports saw. I was working at Portland International Airport in Oregon at that time. Very similar, just absolutely dramatic effect on passengers, the early stages of the pandemic. And like a lot of airports here in Reno, budget was slashed, positions were frozen, furloughs were implemented. And then the big thing was pivoting from kind of our mission around promoting air travel, promoting vacations and everything, to really emphasizing everything that we were doing to repurpose some of our efforts to focus on the mask requirements. We did that earlier than most airports did. We went from advertising flights to promoting safety and cleanliness and sanitation in the air travel experience, from roadway to runway, as we call it. There's lots of different steps in the process, and making sure they were all as clean and safe as they could be. And really just a shout out to our custodians on the front lines, trying to, I mean, we clean like we've never cleaned before, and sanitize, and different technologies, different strategies, different frequencies, just trying to fight the virus everywhere it might exist. And in a large public transportation facility, you almost can't do enough. And we implemented our Move You Safely campaign, which We Move You is our campaign, and it's got some different themes, and all of a sudden safety became the #1 theme. And so really a great opportunity to showcase what we were doing in that regard. And that all remains true today. Everything that we started doing early on, we've continued to evolve. And this is something you see throughout the air travel industry, that much like 9/11 forever changed our security processes in an airport, this pandemic will forever change public health and how we approach it as airport operators and as airlines. And so that's changed for the good. It'll always now be cleaner than it ever was before. We have more focus on viruses, virus transmission. And I think those are all good things that will make air travel even more attractive than it even was before. Here's just some few stats for those that are interested in our total annual passengers here in Reno. And you can kind of see the last 10, 15 years, starting in 2007. The Great Recession was a really difficult time here, like it was in many airports, but there was variability between regions. Here it was kind of a steady fall into it and then a slow recovery out of it. But then you see in 2014, this region really pivoted, and it was one good year after another after that, leading right up through 2019, which, as you can see, were really strong numbers. And honestly, were it not for this pandemic, 2020 would have been a year where probably a lot of records were broken here at the airport. And you can see where we did land, down 55%. That number is in red because we haven't quite booked it yet, but that is almost exactly where we've landed with the data. And so that accounts for a couple good months at the beginning of 2020, right? The pandemic didn't really start impacting us until March. And so just what a full year of that would have looked like. So that's what we're faced with here at the airport. We're still down around that amount, between 55 and 60%. But it's important to consider, how are we doing compared to other airports across the country, other regions? And you can see here is really, these are people getting on airplanes. And you can see on the left side of the graph, starting at minus 55%, what was happening in the middle of March of 2020. And the blue line being us here in Reno region, Northern Nevada, passengers getting on airplanes, and the gray line being the national average of people coming through the checkpoint, getting on an airplane. So you can see we did pretty well as the year progressed. There was a steady climb out, did well through the summer. We were consistently beating the national average by 5 to 10%, it seemed like. And then in late, around beginning of December, we had quite a drop off here. Actually dipped right down to the national average, and now we're staying really close. This chart ends pretty much at the end of the year. I can tell you through January and into February, we're still pretty much there, running 5-7% above the national average. So we're close. And this is really where a lot of airports are at this point. It's really stabilized. People that are gonna fly have been flying. Some people have to fly for business or family reasons, that there's really no option. And so that's kind of the baseline of activity that we're settled into right now. Of course, this impacts revenues, and just a little bit about how we've weathered this challenge financially. Like a lot of other public agencies, we did receive CARES funding. The Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority received just over $30 million was our allotment. And we are pulling that down to help pay our payroll and other essential costs every month, basically. And the goal of that is to keep our airline rates and charges flat. In our conversations with our 10 airlines, the most important thing to them right now is cost control. And airport costs are a certain percentage of what it costs to run an airline, along with lots of other pieces. But the airline piece is important. And what they've said to us is, whatever we were paying you in 2019 is what we really want to be able to continue paying. Normally in a situation where an airport's revenues fall off, the airline rates and fees increase to make sure we have the money we need to pay our bills. So right now their rates are not increasing. That's where the CARES funding is so critically important, and that we're pulling that in instead. And the airlines are paying today what they were paying at the beginning of 2019. You can see it certainly hit us though for the year through, I think, January, 55, 56, 57% decline in passengers. There's days where we're past 60% in terms of how many people we've lost. So that equals loss of revenue. 33% down is where we see our revenue. We're lucky in that we have diverse revenue streams. It's not just airline passengers that drive revenue for our organization. We have a number of land leases, both aeronautical and non-aeronautical, rental car, parking. There's other ancillary sources of revenue that are more stable that have helped us. But we have had to really slash our operating costs, like all airports and a lot of other industries that have been impacted by this. It's just cost cutting everywhere you can. We have a lot of frozen positions. Interestingly enough, there's been quite a bit of turnover through the course of the pandemic. And some of that, I think, is due to the fact people that could retire have been. People that were not comfortable working and a public transportation facility during a pandemic have left. And so that created opportunity for us to be really careful about hiring back. Honestly, our biggest cost is employees, like many organizations. And so with less activity levels, we can get by with less employees in certain areas, but it's not like the airport has gotten smaller. There's still a lot to take care of, a lot to maintain here. And so that has helped us a lot. We did implement furloughs for all of our management and civil service employees out here. 1 day a month without pay. We froze salaries. There's no incentive pay program anymore. So we've done all that. We've deferred capital projects that we would like to have done. We just are holding off until we get to a more stable place to make sure, more than anything, that we hang on to the airlines that we have and we keep our rates flat. That is job number one for us. You can see what the revenue picture looks like there. The blue line, pretty dramatic. And for any business trying to operate, when your revenues do that, that's a challenging time. And you can see where it bottomed out, but we started coming back in May and June, and the green line is where we set our budget. I'm sorry, the green line is how we've been doing, and the black line is what we said for budget in terms of revenue. So we have done well through December. I can tell you January is pretty even there. And so we are in an okay place, despite being down so far in revenue. Our budget adjustments are really helping us weather this. The CARES funding is helping us weather it. And we are generally optimistic that this is such a long-term impact. You know, many people think 9/11 was so catastrophic. People were flying again a week after 9/11, and I mean, millions of people were flying. And so it was a terrible 1 week impact, and then it took many months to climb out of, you know, the rest of 9/11's impact, in fact, a few years. But it didn't go on as long as this has. To be down 60% of your business for 9 months is uncharted territory for airlines, for airports, for everybody in the air travel business. But I am grateful to say that we're doing okay, and we're optimistic that we're going to make it out of this and slowly dig out of this hole. And that is really what we're in. We're in a deep hole, and it's going to take a long time to climb out of it, and we're going to need a lot of help. And really, by us, you know, I mean all of us. Air travel is just a barometer of economic prosperity in any region. As there's more prosperity, more people get on airplanes, whether it's for business, pleasure, go see family. We're a true barometer, and people move around more when they feel comfortable doing so, when there's places to go, people to see, and we recognize our role. And we know that there's amazing partnerships in this region. It's one of the things that has really struck me as a new CEO 6 months into the job. I've been making the rounds, meeting a lot of great partners here in the Reno-Tahoe, Sparks, Northern Nevada, Lake Tahoe, the whole region that we serve as the regional international airport, whether it's RSCVA, the Chamber, EDU, our government partners, UNR, Regional Air Service Corporation. All of them are really important partners to us, looking at how can we serve this region, how can we drive recovery. And I'm excited about this team. I think there's a lot of unique aspects that this region has in terms of competing for air service. And believe me, we are competing for air service like never before as we climb out of this pandemic. It is truly going to be an arms race, if you will, to get airlines to serve communities. But airlines already see the potential. When I say we have unique advantages, they see that as well, with the great indoor and outdoor leisure opportunities. And leisure will drive the recovery here in the air travel business. And what you see on this slide is minus Palm Springs, which I'll talk about in a second. These are all city pairs that came back to us in the fall or are scheduled to come back in the spring, and even a few new things on this list. And I can tell you, in conversations with the airlines the last 6 months, it's more volatile now than I've ever seen it in my career. Predicting what an airline is going to do with its airplane right now is almost impossible. And so we've been surprised by some things. We did not see Allegiant coming to us with Orange County and Jackson Hole. We did not anticipate Alaska coming with Palm Springs, and it's in red because Alaska has ultimately pulled that back. So they identified the leisure to leisure market there. We're excited about that, pitched us on the idea. And usually we're the ones doing the pitch of trying to get airlines to come here. They came to us with this, but then as California locked down, as the spread of the virus got so bad in Southern California, Alaska recognized that even though it might make sense on paper, that just the market conditions aren't there. So to their credit, they pulled that back. They want to bring that back next winter, which we're excited about. But you can see some pretty important locations here for people in Reno, in our region to go to, and people from those cities to come here and do business, to recreate. We're excited with what all these airlines are doing. You can see JSX, which if you're not familiar with it, is a hop on, hop off, more of a private airline where you go through a metal detector 15 minutes before you're going to depart. It's over on the private side of the airfield. They've introduced Burbank and Orange County last fall and in December for Orange County. They're both doing well. It's one of those business models where the pandemic will drive a change in consumer behavior. And a lot of people it might be a long time before they're comfortable standing in a long line with a bunch of other people in an airport terminal. But if you can get on a smaller airplane, it's a nice flying experience, a small jet, quick on, quick off. A lot of people, we see could be choosing that. And so, credit to JSX for entering the market. We're hoping to grow with them with a support from the Regional Air Service Corporation. We think that is a model that can do really well here. So in spite of the difficulty of trying to read the minds of airline executives, we still have an air service strategy. We revamped it in the fall, that regardless of how volatile these times are that we're living in, we have to have a plan. We will adjust the plan, we'll tweak the plan as situation unfolds here. And so you can see it's pretty, not brain surgery here. We want to hang on to what we have. We want to expand into markets that we haven't been in before, that we aspired to. Either we lost it and we want to get it back, or it was seasonal and we want to expand it. And ultimately, we want to attract previously unserved markets. That's always been the goal for air service, is to give you all more choices for direct flights to get you right where you want to go, make it as simple and easy and affordable as we can as the airport operator. So, what's that recovery look like? What's driving the recovery? It's certainly how people feel about flying right now. And, that is in large part driven by the vaccine. As the vaccine goes, consumer confidence goes. And I think as more and more of us are able to receive the vaccine and feel comfortable moving around, we'll see more and more people buying airfare. In spite of the pandemic, if you live around here, there's been a lot of growth almost because of the pandemic. The flow of people coming into this region from California, from other places, I can tell you it was a challenge buying a home here. And it came down to what was on sale the day I was looking, because they disappear quickly. And, I'm grateful we were able to find a home, but the amount of people coming into this region are ultimately airport customers too. And we know that in time we will see them, that migration to Northern Nevada will ultimately benefit our air travel. That's something we want to talk to the airlines about. While we're familiar with it, we can't assume that the airlines understand what's happening in our region, and we won't be able to educate them on that. We know there's pent up travel demand. People are tired of being at home. I think we all talk about that with our families and our workplace. This has grown weary on all of us, and there is certainly just some pent up demand to go anywhere and get on an airplane and go on a short vacation or go visit family you haven't been able to see for almost a year or more. And so we certainly think that will be part of this recovery. And then it also means new opportunities with our airline partners. And as consumer behavior changes, as the pivot to outdoor leisure activity really starts to drive recovery, that's opportunities for our region. And also, just noting that aircraft continue to evolve. Some of you, that have tracked the MAX, Boeing MAX 800, 900, which was grounded for almost a year and a half. It's coming back now. It'll be back flying revenue routes on March 1st. And that's a next generation aircraft. It can do things that the generations before it could not. And when we sit, at 5,000 feet, that creates a more challenging flying environment. And the MAX 800 and some of the Airbus new performance aircraft, it's going to create opportunities for us to get to places that we haven't been to before easier. So that's also exciting. That is also just one more factor for us to think about. Our target markets, when we say we want to expand, here's the list. I won't run through it all, but these are places that we have seasonal service to that we'd like to extend it to all year. Daily would be great, 5 days a week, something like that. We have, you want to have an appetite, the things you're aspiring to. And when we have those opportunities as airlines, to make the pitch to them of why we think we're a good market as we enter a real strong recovery period here. So you can see what that looks like. West Coast, and then some of those longer, thinner routes, primarily to hubs. And as I noted before, we have a number of these already, and so we want to just expand on them and grow that. Here's a list of markets that we haven't been to before, that somewhere in the recovery, we want to be able to have these conversations with airlines, that the growth in Northern Nevada, the expansion of the tech industry, the focus on leisure travel and the great outdoors and the great indoors, that ought to open up some new markets for us as regions compete for air travel. Every region is going to try and promote what its strengths are. And we really feel like we have unique strengths here that will really benefit our pitch to airlines. When we're in New York or Atlanta, Dallas, Seattle, talking to airline corporate executives, we're going to be talking about the unique factors that are happening here in Northern Nevada. And so that is an advantage to us. I want to point out one dot on this map, and that is Charlotte, CLT there. Just announced from American Airlines, a daily nonstop beginning June 3rd. We've been trying to get this route for probably close to 10 years. I mean our great air service team here. And they have always aspired for this. It's an American hub with incredible connectivity up and down the East Coast and into Europe. And, we haven't had a new city route from American Airlines in almost 20 years. And they have the biggest fleet in the world. So this is a far bigger victory than we're probably giving ourselves credit for, because we just don't take victories right now. We're just trying to get what we can. But in the noise of trying to get new routes, this is a huge win, but it's also a litmus test for our recovery and how aggressively will this region respond to new routes, that we're gonna have to fill the seats. And I'll be very direct, in my business, it's butts and seats. And if I don't get them, the route will go away. And that is the bottom line, that it'll leave after this season. We might not see it again. So I'll be pushing this one pretty hard. Our whole team will be working with those regional partners that I listed. We want to be able to show American Airlines that when you bring a new route like this to a great hub, that we will respond to that, even coming out of a pandemic. It's a great leisure destination, great access into the Southeast or up into the Northeast, which when you're dealing with hub airports on the East Coast, Charlotte is a great one to be going through versus some of the other not so fun big airports. So I just wanted to call that one out. We hope to have more announcements for city pairs like this in the months and years ahead for sure. Above all else, we know air travel is changing because of the pandemic, and it's changing already, and it will change even more. International travel will be slow to come back. Well, Europe is a great place to get to from Charlotte. I'm not sure how many of us are going to Europe this summer, right? The digital vaccination requirements, the COVID testing requirements, it'll be more complicated. It'll take a while to sort it all out, whether it's Europe or Latin America or Asia. It'll vary by region. It'll be harder to make those travel plans. Even after vaccination, different countries will have different requirements. So that will take a while, but we all want to get back to those places, and eventually we will. Outdoor travel is going to be a huge driver here because it has been a public health emergency. And in this particular case, this virus is airborne. Being outside around the lake or around the great Northern Nevada region is again going to set us apart, especially when you connect that with the great indoor opportunities that we have as we get vaccinated and feel more comfortable in those indoor environments. Business plus leisure equals the new leisure traveler. And this is something we're really trying to explore and understand right now. And that a lot of people have gone home to work and they won't be going back to those campuses, but they will still travel. Just because you're working from home doesn't mean you're not going to go visit family and friends, doesn't mean you're not going to go to a conference that grows your professional development or allows you to build a network of people. Those things are still true. And there's certainly a growing school of thought out there that business travel is certainly not dead because of Zoom or any of the other online platforms. Business travel will change, and you will see more people blending their leisure travel with business trips because they're working from home. People that are working from home, that does not mean they will never go back to the campuses or facilities they used to work from or that they've been hired into. Companies still need brand identity. They still need culture. They still need training. And so we think we're getting new business travelers, maybe groups of employees who wouldn't have traveled for business before. When we may lose some on the road warriors who were on the road every week, they've realized some of that they can do virtually. But I think, make no mistake about it, companies are still competing with each other. And when you lose a customer and realize your virtual meeting might have been the reason versus your competitor who was in person, we're going to have road warriors back. But there's no question there's long-term changes in business travel for our industry. The pandemic health and safety trends aren't going anywhere. Like I said, that's here to stay. There's a lot of fair deals. I can tell you, I saw one fare to Charlotte that was $353 round trip. Now, there's only so many seats for sale at that price point. So go early, be aggressive. And if you want to go on vacation this summer, keep your eyes open because the airlines, like I said, they can't fly them empty. They need people flying. And so they will certainly be incentivizing that. And we certainly expect to see more last minute travel, especially this year in recovery. People waiting until they're vaccinated or until they see a more the fare they're looking for, or deciding to go see family, whatever the case may be. We think travel, especially air travel right now, is going to be almost more impulse or short term. That will smooth out over time for sure. Speaking specifically of business travel, this is something we're really trying to focus on. We actually did a travel sentiment survey with the help of the chamber and a lot of those other partners I listed, specific to travelers in Northern Nevada, Washoe County, and we got almost 1,000 responses to a pretty lengthy list of questions about how are people viewing air travel right now and going forward. You can see some of the kind of factoids that we uncovered there. You know, I think the key takeaway is that business travel is not gone. It's going to change. Companies, you know, will get back into it. I certainly urge our business partners to find room in your budgets for that air travel, or ultimately, you know, we'll struggle to hang on to what we have today. We have to have our business travelers out there supporting the air carrier service. And I think the value of person-to-person connections can never be argued. It's not the same in a virtual environment. I would love to be in a room right now presenting this to all of you and then having, you know, a dozen sidebar conversations on my way out the door, which we can't have today. We can do some Q&A, right? But it's not the same. And so while virtual is amazing in its capabilities, our person-to-person, human-to-human interactions will always drive tremendous value, never more so than in the business world. And so personally, I'm confident that it's going to change, but it's not going away, and we'll adapt to it, and we'll certainly see continued growth in that area. Last slide. And I just wanted to let you all know that we are preparing for the future. You know, I can't just worry about 2021. There's a tremendous amount of growth happening in Northern Nevada. And as the airport that needs to support that, it takes years to add infrastructure to an airport. And you can't start taking years off because times are not as good right now. We did that after 9/11. And the airlines regretted it. And the airlines, you still see them saying yes to projects. So a couple things here I just want to highlight. You know, we have a terminal expansion, that kind of the ticketing hall. When you go in there and you're checking in, during our busy times, it's tight, it's congested. Everybody's got skis and snowboards and bags, and the airlines have already said yes and continue to say yes. So we need to push that out. raise the ceilings, create more depth, add some restrooms there, just improve that whole experience as we begin to get our travelers back. That's an important part of the travel experience. You can see there in green, it says new concourse, new concourse. I don't know that we'll have new concourses, we may, but we know those gates that you go to get on and off aircraft, those are 1960, 70 era buildings, and it's hard to keep them updated. The cost of that maintenance grows and grows. And ultimately, as you travel around the country, there's some really great terminal concepts out there that we want to position ourselves to be able to evolve to. So this month, we're starting a 2-year planning and design effort for those concourses. So that is really the future. That's a 5+ year effort to be sure, but it will dramatically remake kind of that customer facing part of the airport. You can see there in purple is a big square. Ultimately, our rental cars need a lot more infrastructure and capacity than they have today. This year, we're also working on a planning effort to identify the best location to grow and expand our rental car footprint. We have a lot of ways that vehicles access the airport. We need to account for them all, whether it's a rental car or Uber, Lyft, or your vehicle that you're parking or somebody's picking you up. Automobiles is how our customers will access the airport for the foreseeable future. And we know they'll be electric, they'll be driverless, they'll be shared. The form of the vehicle will change. But a car is a car when you're dealing with movements in front of a terminal building. And so we are working hard on that. And on the top of the screen, I just wanted to point out a significant non-commercial aviation investment, and that is with Stellar Aviation on the other side of the airfield, a $20+ million investment to expand our business aviation. And that is an area that is not talked about as much, but our hangars are full at both airports. People coming out of California own airplanes and they want a place to put them. And right now, we don't even have covered hangars available for them. We're trying to add to that capacity, create capacity, and Stellar is making a significant private investment that's going to really grow our business aviation component. And whether it's that JSX model or you're a business and you have fractional ownership in a jet, and you're going to have a great new facility there to go with Atlantic Aviation, who's also a great partner. So lots of airport investment still on track, planning for the future, and hopefully the 20s here will be a period of recovery and really strong growth. That is my last slide. Thank you so much, Kristine, for the opportunity. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Daren. We really appreciate the work that you and your team have done, and arguably have always done. It's to not only build a vision for the future that is in line with our region's strengths, but also making it really clear, especially how we in the business community can be part of that vision and where we can interface that vision. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective and for letting us know what's coming in the future. I think all of us are very much looking forward to seeing how 2021 unfolds and to see us recover. So just a couple quick questions, and again, want to invite everyone on the call to enter whatever questions they may have via chat, if you desire. But my first question for you, Daren, has to do with vaccination. Ironically enough, the governor just announced while you were talking that he's going to be addressing the state this Thursday in a press conference with some updates on COVID-19 response. That being said, perhaps what I'm about to ask will soon become moot, but I'm going to ask anyway. Tell us about where the airport and its employees fall in the vaccination priority lanes and what preparations have looked like thus far for the airport to get its staff vaccinated.
Sure. Thank you for the question, and certainly very topical. It's become a part of our lives that we could never have imagined, but our first responders, so police, fire, dispatchers, were in the first tier, I think subgroup 10. And so actually in the last 3 weeks, they've been receiving their second dose. And so we have good progress there with all of those kind of essential first responders that you just have to have at all times. The rest of the airport operation, and the airport operation is its own category in the second tier. And so that is pretty much all the rest of us, whether it's maintenance or administration, some of our airline partners, our TSA and federal partners, everybody else that it takes to keep this place open and operating every day. We hear we're getting close, as you all, have tracked, I'm sure. Washoe County has not gotten as much as they would like to have had, and that's been a national issue. And so we've been ready for a month or so. I think in February, we're hoping they will get to us. And so that would put us somewhere in the March timeline where the airport operation as a category would complete the vaccination process. So it's the question everybody's asking. I'll be anxious to hear what Governor Sisolak has to say as well. I know they're working on it, and my expectation is that it is getting better at the national level. It does seem like vaccine production is ramping up, and you see the number each day of the number of vaccinations across the country. That's been working up as well. So eventually we'll get there. We're preaching patience, and we continue to be very vigorous on requiring masks throughout the airport. We've been doing that since November. So while, the Biden administration recently made that a federal requirement, it doesn't really change anything here. The governor gave us the bandwidth to do that, and we did it. Adherence here has been great. All the protective measures that have put in place will remain for the foreseeable future as we work through the vaccination process, and really until they declare an end to the state of emergency for the public health pandemic. So that's where we're at today.
Right, absolutely. And to echo that sentiment, I would say there's so many factors that are dovetailing together, to create this environment for vaccination. We're waiting on particular allocations, but also, if you know that you're in a certain priority lane, you're able to prepare ahead of time for how your point of distribution will function and how you're going to get your staff vaccinated. So it's been encouraging to check in with different sectors, yours being one, and to know that there is a plan, and that, when the time comes, when your turn is up, you're ready to execute. So thank you for the foresight on that. Turning to federal funding, I know that you mentioned a couple times how crucial, vital federal assistance has been in the survival of air travel and the air industry. So I'm curious to hear your feedback on current relief that's being discussed at the federal level, and what is coming for those in air service, and what kind of targeted relief you're hoping and expecting to receive from the federal government should something get passed in the next month or so.
Sure, thank you, Kristine. It is certainly something I think so many industries are keenly watching, and as it works its way through Congress right now, it does appear publicly owned airports will again be receiving some amount of aid, coronavirus relief. And for us, those funds come to us through the Federal Aviation Administration, which is how we receive all of our grant funding, and the FAA supports airports across the country, especially on our airfields. Runways are incredibly expensive. We're in the middle of a $50 million project right now, basically rebuilding our main runway, which is in large part federally funded. Where these funds are especially critical for us is allowing us to subsidize this period of severe revenue decrease and not eat into our own cash reserves, because you don't want to use your savings account to pay your bills very long, right? And we're very much the same, that we have a certain amount of money in the bank that is, our shield against times like this. And we were burning through it pre-CARES Act. We went through 20% of it really quickly. I mean, it's kind of scary how fast you burn through cash. And the CARES Act has stopped that completely. We have been stable in terms of our savings account, if you will, and we're pooling in the CARES Act. We're able to bring back some of those kind of critical infrastructure projects. You don't want to skip too many years of repairing and replacing infrastructure in the air travel business. It gets wear and tear on it every day. and safety has to always be front of mind. And so these relief funds also allow us to keep pace with those things that we need to do. Most importantly, and by design, these relief funds, both the CARES Act and then what we are going to get, there was a bill that passed in December that's a small amount, but every little bit helps here. It allows us to not lay anybody off, which has been the goal from the very beginning, that airports and other industries not put people out of work because of a pandemic. And when you looked at those revenue charts, that's not a pretty picture, but in most situations, you would have seen a reduction in the workforce when that happens. That has not happened here. We don't anticipate that happening. We're keeping our people employed. We're actually refilling positions now that are essential positions to keep our doors open. So we're out there trying to help people that have maybe lost jobs in other locations. They might find an opportunity here because of the combination of our own revenues, our own savings, and these relief funds. So really interested to see what happens here next month with this $1 trillion relief package that's being talked about. We think some of that may find its way here, and we'll be brainstorming how can we put that to its best use? How can we think long term? And that how do we use these funds to help accelerate the recovery? You know, not only hanging on to all of our people, but being a great community partner and looking for ways to leverage, you know, all of our resources to getting us back to the new normal, right? It'll never be the way it used to be, but get to that new normal and get people moving around again, get people employed. All of those things are factoring into our strategic financial analysis. And you don't assume you're going to have anything until it's actually there. So while I'm interested in that, I think Washington has proved to be pretty unpredictable these days. And so if it comes to fruition, we'll be grateful and we will put it to its really great use. And if it doesn't, we still have a financial plan that we think gets us through to better days one way or another. So is that helpful?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when, the view is not only to respond and recover, but also to build resilience. And it sounds like especially, allocating funds toward capital projects that will ultimately grow the footprint of the airport and grow your ability to serve the area and other regions. That's the way to do it. That's the way to go. So thank you for sharing your perspective there. So I'll just go ahead and throw you one last question. I'm not seeing anything in chat, so this will be the final question of the day, and then we'll let you go to keep doing your good work. So I don't want to be presumptuous, but I'm assuming that Reno-Tahoe in particular, is faring a bit better than perhaps some of its counterparts around the country, other similar markets, other similar sized cities and airports, because of our access to outdoor and leisure opportunities. But how are we comparing to other similarly sized airports in our country and how we're recovering?
Great question, and so one of those measures is the passenger count that I shared earlier. And I came from a location that's actually below average. Portland has been a pretty challenging place for a lot of reasons, and that hurts business, right? And so while we've been running 5 to 10% better, Portland has been less. And I think you can look across the country in every market and see some have inherent advantages when it comes to recovery, and some may be more challenged. And what we know for sure is that every community that's lost air service, which is pretty much everybody, is strategizing what their pitch is going to be when they go into that airline boardroom and try and convince them to put an airplane back in your city. Airplanes are very mobile by design, and airlines we've seen them on less than 30 days notice, drop service in and pull it out. More volatile than ever, and they're not looking much further than that. And I think, that chart that I showed, airlines are coming to us with things that we weren't anticipating because they identified what you pointed out, is that consumers are looking for certain types of vacation experience. And even as we get vaccinated, there's unique vacation experiences here in terms of blending the great indoors and the great outdoors. And if you're not going to Europe, but you're going to get out of your house this summer, where are you going to go? The Midwest? the Southeast, the great Sierras here, and have a little gaming, have some great, resort experiences, go view the lake. There's just so many possibilities here. And the airlines, to their credit, have huge databases through their frequent flyer programs. They are mining those databases, looking at trends. They're watching zip code changes. They know people are moving. Their customers are moving out of California. We've heard this from them. They're identifying new route opportunities based on that. So to the airlines' credit, they are being aggressive. They're trying to anticipate what recovery looks like. And I think we're in the top tier of attractive locations for people to either relocate a business to. If you have Mike Kazmierski on, he can give a whole different speech of what their business has been like lately. Ultimately, Mike's bringing us more customers, right? And so I think all of those things, whether it's business and tech expansion, leisure travel, the great indoors and outdoors, all of those things work together into an integrated message to airlines that when you look at the list of places across the US that you can add service to, we are going to be near the top of the list in many of those conversations. Now, hub airports will continue to dominate. So Atlanta is Atlanta, and Los Angeles and New York. And we're not talking about that kind of competition. It's all the other markets out there that are going to struggle to get back what they used to have that are our size. We're not a large market, but boy, we have special attributes here that I think are going to really pay dividends on many levels. I know I'm just the airport guy talking about airport stuff, but like I said, we're a barometer. And so when we're doing good, that means a lot of other industries and regional partners are also doing good. And so that is a positive message for all of us. So
I would agree. I would agree. And thank you for the part that you're playing in this ecosystem, not only as an indicator, but also, for us, the story that we are happy to tell and are eager to tell is that, the small businesses who support this region and who really form the backbone of not just the living experience, but the travel experience, that those folks are hanging on, and that's the story that we're here to tell as well. And thank you so much for joining us, for being at the helm of this effort. And we know that you're supported by a great team, and a bunch of them are on this call as well. And we extend our thanks to them as well. And thank you. We'll have to have you back soon.
Anytime, and thank you to you and Ann and your chamber for all the support. I'm sure there'll be great things for us to work on in the months and years ahead, and I'm excited for that. And we'll bring good things to the region, no question. So thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Have a great day, and everyone, it's great to see you.